The stars around Earth glowed quietly, as if nothing had changed. But in orbit everything was different. On the far side of the moon, a massive fleet of alien warships waited like predators in the dark. These ships belonged to the Galactic Coalition, an alliance of older and stronger species that ruled hundreds of worlds. For centuries, the Coalition had expanded without real opposition. They brought new planets into their rule either by offering protection or by crushing resistance with overwhelming force. When they finally discovered Earth, the Coalition expected the same result. Humans, after all, were a young species. Their starships had only recently begun traveling beyond their solar system. Their colonies on Mars, Europa, and a handful of nearby exoplanets were still fragile and dependent on supply lines. From the Coalition's view, humanity was like a child holding a wooden spear, facing a professional army of veterans. The aliens believed there would be no true war. There would only be surrender. The envoy arrives on Earth's orbit. The Coalition sent a delegation ship. It was a sleek vessel of silver and gold, its hull glowing with patterns that shimmered like moving light. From this ship came the envoy, a tall, insect-like being from the Sirathi species. His name was Zorath Keel, and he had overseen dozens of surrenders across the galaxy. To him, humans were simply another entry on his long list of conquered peoples. The envoy was received on a massive orbital station above Earth. Waiting for him were representatives from the United Earth Council, leaders chosen from every continent and colony to speak as one. Among them was Chancellor Elena Merrick, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a calm face. She stood with folded hands, hiding the storm of thoughts in her mind. "People of Earth," Zorath Keel said in a voice that buzzed like machinery, "the Galactic Coalition extends its offer of mercy. Your world has been evaluated. Your species has potential, but it is limited. You will accept Coalition rule, pay tribute, and follow our laws. In return, you will be spared destruction. Refuse, and your fleets will burn, your colonies will fall, and your planet will kneel in ashes." The hall was silent. The humans present exchanged glances, but said nothing at first. Elena Merrick finally stepped forward. "We ask for time," she said calmly. "Humanity must consider the terms. This is a decision that will shape our future." Zorath Keel's antennae twitched in amusement. Every species said the same thing. They always asked for time, thinking it would change something. It never did. "You have 7 planetary cycles," he declared. "After that, we expect your answer." With that, the envoy left, certain that he had already won. Behind closed doors, when the alien ship departed, the council chamber changed. The polite faces of the leaders hardened into grim expressions. Elena Merrick pressed a button, sealing the chamber from outside surveillance. "They think we will bow," she said, her voice sharp. "They think humans will trade freedom for safety." A man beside her, Admiral Jonas Hale, slammed his fist against the table. "We've seen their fleet. Dozens of battle cruisers, carriers, and weapons we can't even identify. If we fight head-on, we'll be crushed." "Yes," Merrick agreed, "but surrender is not survival either. Once we are under their rule, humanity will never rise again. We will be another forgotten species in their archives." Around the table, the leaders argued. Some feared the power of the Coalition and suggested compromise. Others demanded resistance even if it meant destruction. But slowly, a plan began to form. Hidden from the Coalition's eyes, Earth had been preparing for years. Humanity's wars with itself had finally ended only a century ago, but those wars had taught hard lessons. Old rivalries had pushed humans to build powerful weapons, advanced starships, and experimental technologies. When peace came, those weapons were not destroyed, they were hidden, upgraded, and stored away. The Coalition saw only Earth's surface fleets, the ones humans allowed them to see. They did not know of the secret shipyards buried inside asteroid belts, or the stealth fleets stationed in deep space. "Let them think we hesitate," Merrick said firmly. "Let them believe we are weak. While they wait, we prepare. When the time comes, humanity will not kneel, we will rise." The council voted. The decision was unanimous. Humanity would not surrender. The whisper of war in the following days, activity across the solar system changed. To the Coalition's spies, it looked like humans were debating among themselves. Protests on Earth filled the streets, some demanding peace, others shouting for war. News channels argued day and night about the Coalition's terms. It all looked chaotic and weak, but beneath that noise, a quiet storm gathered. On Mars, massive shipyards hidden beneath the red deserts lit up. Workers and engineers operated in silence, constructing warships that had been kept in secret for decades. On Europa, icy caverns hid submarine hangars where experimental vessels warmed their engines for the first time. Across the asteroid belt, mining colonies revealed their true nature, fortresses armed with railguns and missile silos. Most important of all was the Armada project. Deep in the Kuiper Belt, far beyond Pluto, humanity had built something extraordinary, a fleet unlike any before. Hundreds of ships, each designed for different strategies from stealth frigates to heavy dreadnoughts, waited in silence. Their crews were veterans, descendants of generations who had fought to keep humanity alive. They were united not by conquest, but by survival. The Coalition did not know of this fleet. To them, humans were still debating, but the Armada was already preparing to move. A dangerous gamble. 7 days passed quickly. On the 8th, the Coalition envoy returned, expecting Earth's answer. Once again, Elena Marek in the council faced him. "Well?" Zorath Keel asked, his antennae twitching. "Have you chosen wisdom, or will you embrace extinction?" Elena did not smile. Her face remained calm, but her voice carried strength. "Humanity has considered your offer. We refuse." The envoy tilted his head, amused. "So be it, then you choose destruction. Your species will regret this arrogance." "No," Elena said softly. "It is you who will regret underestimating us." For the first time, the envoy paused. There was something in her voice, something that made him uneasy. He dismissed the thought and left, certain the Coalition's warships would end this foolishness quickly. But far from Earth, engines roared to life. The Armada was waking. The calm before the storm, as the alien fleet prepared for war, humans prepared too. Families gathered in cities, waiting for news. Soldiers boarded transports, knowing they might never return. Pilots checked their ships, running their hands across metal hulls as if touching old friends. In the Kuiper Belt, Admiral Jonas Hale stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, the flagship of the Armada. Outside the window, hundreds of ships glimmered in the darkness, their lights forming a constellation of defiance. "Signal the fleet," he ordered. Today, humanity writes its answer in fire. The ships responded one by one, their engines igniting until the void itself seemed to burn. For the first time, humanity's true strength was revealed, not to the enemy yet, but to itself. They were not the scattered nations of the past. They were not divided colonies. They were one people, united by the will to survive and the refusal to kneel. The storm was coming, and humanity was ready to meet it. The Coalition believed the humans were buying time with useless debates. They had seen the broadcasts, the shouting crowds, and the endless council meetings. To the aliens, this chaos proved weakness. A divided species, they thought, could never resist the will of the Galactic Coalition. But in truth, every second of delay was carefully planned. Humanity's leaders were not wasting time. They were building it into a weapon. Quiet preparations across the solar system, orders moved in secret. They were disguised as trade agreements, mining requests, or scientific research, but every code carried the same message: prepare for war. On Mars, workers in dusty suits moved inside underground hangars. Gigantic doors slowly opened, revealing ships hidden for decades beneath the red soil. Some were old warships patched and upgraded with new weapons. Others were sleek and new, built in silence while the Coalition watched only the skies above. In the asteroid belt, entire colonies shifted their schedules. What looked like mining was actually arming. Giant drills became railguns, and cargo pods filled with ore were replaced by missile batteries. Children whispered that the rocks themselves had teeth now. On Earth, citizens were restless. Rumors spread of war, but the truth was carefully hidden. Factories ran day and night, producing weapons, armor, and food supplies. Soldiers trained quietly in remote bases, while pilots drilled in simulators designed to match alien tactics. The most secret preparations, however, were in the Kuiper Belt. There, the Armada project came alive. The Armada had been humanity's greatest gamble. It began decades earlier, when old rivalries on Earth finally ended. Leaders had feared that one day an outside force might threaten them. So, while peace was still fragile, they had secretly invested in building a fleet not meant for exploration, but for survival. Now, hidden in the cold outer reaches of the solar system, hundreds of ships drifted in formation, The fleet was not uniform like the coalition's. Each ship was different, designed by different nations, different engineers, and different philosophies. Yet together, they formed something unique. There were massive dreadnoughts with heavy armor, capable of taking punishment others could not. There were nimble frigates armed with stealth drives and fast weapons made to strike and vanish. Carriers carried swarms of fighters, each one piloted by men and women who had trained since youth. What made the Armada special was not just its firepower, but its spirit. Every crew member knew why they were there. They were not fighting for expansion or conquest. They were fighting for survival, for freedom, and for the right to call the stars their own. Admiral Jonas Hale stood aboard the flagship Vanguard, watching the fleet through the glass of the command bridge. He had fought in Earth's last great war before peace had come. He knew what humans were capable of when pushed to the edge. They underestimate us, he told his officers. That is their mistake. We will make them remember it. The Coalition prepares. Meanwhile, the Coalition fleet gathered near Jupiter. Their warships dwarfed human designs, each one shining with advanced alien technology. Energy shields shimmered faintly around them, and their weapons glowed with power that could tear apart planets. The Coalition commander, High Marshal Therun of the Dravari species, studied his tactical screens. He had crushed many worlds before. To him, Earth was nothing more than a formality. Deploy the Vanguard, he ordered. One fleet will be enough to remind them of their place. They will surrender after the first blow. The Vanguard consisted of 12 battle cruisers escorted by dozens of smaller vessels. To the Coalition, this was a light force. To most species, it was overwhelming. Therun did not expect resistance. He expected humans to beg for peace the moment their defenses were shattered. First signs of defiance. Back on Earth, Chancellor Elena Merrick received the latest intelligence. They're moving, she said, her voice calm but her eyes hard. The Coalition is sending a Vanguard fleet. Admiral Hale's reply came from the Kuiper Belt. Good, let them come. It is time we show them what humanity has hidden. Across the Armada, crews strapped into their stations. Pilots climbed into their fighters, their helmets shining under the lights. Engineers ran final checks on reactors and weapons. Soldiers prepared boarding gear, knowing they might be called into brutal close combat. The order came. Prepare to move. For the first time, the full Armada began to advance. Engines ignited, lighting up the darkness like a field of stars. Hundreds of ships aligned their courses, heading inward toward the heart of the solar system. The storm was no longer gathering. It was beginning to move. Life on the ships inside the Vanguard, the crew felt the weight of history. Young ensigns whispered nervously, but the veterans reminded them of why they were there. One pilot, Lieutenant Rhea Patel, sat in her fighter, hands on the controls. She thought of her family back on Earth, her younger brother who still believed she was just a transport pilot. When the Coalition comes, she whispered, they'll see what humans can do. On another ship, the ironclad, Captain David O'Rourke spoke to his crew. We are not the strongest, not the fastest, but we are human. And that means we fight until the last breath. Remember that when the shooting starts. The mood across the Armada was not fear, but determination. Humanity had been underestimated for centuries by itself and now by the galaxy. This was their chance to prove who they were. The clash approaches. The Vanguard fleet of the Coalition entered the asteroid belt, their weapons ready. They expected silence and retreat. Instead, they found resistance. Hidden gun platforms activated, firing massive railgun slugs that tore into the Vanguard's escorts. Mines planted inside asteroids detonated, forcing the battle cruisers to raise their shields. The aliens were shocked. This was no passive defense. This was a trap. Humans are fighting back, one officer reported in disbelief. Therun narrowed his eyes. So be it. Crush them. But the Vanguard did not realize that the asteroid belt was only the beginning. The Armada reveals itself. From the edge of the system, the Armada arrived. Hundreds of human ships emerged from the darkness, their engines burning bright. The Coalition fleet's scanners lit up with more signals than they could count. Admiral Hale stood tall on the Vanguard. Transmit to all ships. Engage on my mark. For the first time, humanity revealed its true strength. The Coalition had thought humans would waste time negotiating. They thought humans would bow. But now they saw something else entirely. An Armada that should not have existed. A fleet built by willpower and desperation, standing united against the greatest power in the galaxy. The storm had arrived, and the galaxy was about to learn the cost of underestimating humanity. The void between the asteroids burned with fire. What had begun as silence was now chaos. The Coalition's Vanguard fleet had expected to pass through the asteroid belt like hunters among prey, but instead, they found themselves ambushed. Railgun slugs cut through space like lightning. Explosive mines burst in patterns too clever to be random. Entire clusters of rocks shifted, revealing hidden launchers. Humanity had turned the belt into a fortress, and the Vanguard was caught inside it. But this was only the beginning. The Vanguard Response High Marshal Tharoon stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Korath, watching the battle unfold. His insect-like face showed no fear, only irritation. Raise shields. Push forward. Their weapons are crude. They cannot stop us. The Coalition ships answered with a storm of plasma fire. Beams of blue energy slashed through the asteroid field, shattering rocks into glowing dust. Explosions lit up the dark as hidden human defenses were destroyed one by one. The Coalition was powerful. There was no denying it. Forward batteries, clear the path, Tharoon ordered. Slowly the Vanguard pressed deeper, forcing its way through the storm. But he failed to notice the silence on the outer edges of his scanners. The Armada arrives from the blackness beyond the belt. Hundreds of human ships emerged. They came from every direction, their engines glowing like scattered stars. They did not form a neat, predictable line like the Coalition fleet. Instead, they swarmed like predators circling their prey. On the Vanguard, Admiral Jonas Hale gave the command. All ships engage. The Armada roared into action. Stealth frigates darted ahead, releasing swarms of missiles. Carriers launched waves of fighters, their small frames weaving through plasma fire. Dreadnoughts opened with heavy cannons, their shots smashing against the Coalition's shields. For the first time in centuries, the Coalition fleet faced an enemy that did not break at the first strike. Human tactics. The battle was unlike anything the aliens had expected. The Coalition fought with order and predictability, relying on overwhelming firepower and flawless formations. But humans fought differently. Frigates vanished behind asteroids, reappeared, and struck from unexpected angles. Fighters dove headfirst into enemy fire, breaking formation only to reform behind enemy lines. Old freighters, which looked like harmless transports, revealed hidden weapons and fired point-blank at alien cruisers. "They are improvising," one Coalition officer said, disbelief in his voice. "Their moves make no sense, but they did make sense to humans. Chaos was their weapon. Decades of war among themselves had taught them creativity. Where the Coalition saw disorder, humans saw opportunity." On the bridge of her fighter carrier, Commander Leon Joe shouted orders. "Squadrons 3 and 5 scatter. Draw their fire! Squadron 7, flank the battlecruiser now." Pilots obeyed, scattering in all directions. Plasma beams cut through the void, missing their targets. In that brief opening, human fighters tore into the enemy's weak spots. One Coalition cruiser shuddered, its shields collapsing under relentless assault before it exploded in a brilliant flash. Cheers erupted across the Armada. It was the first alien ship destroyed by human hands. A lesson in fear in the Korath. High Marshal, Tharoon's calm began to crack. "Impossible," he hissed. "They are primitives. They should not be able to—" Another explosion rocked his fleet. 2 more cruisers were gone, their wrecks tumbling into the asteroid field. Human missiles launched in massive, coordinated volleys had overwhelmed their shields. Tharoon clenched his claws. "Do not falter. Crush them." His ships pressed harder, firing everything they had. Several human vessels were destroyed in the counterattack. A frigate vanished in a burst of plasma. A carrier lost its engines and spun helplessly before being torn apart. The cost was real and human lives were being lost with every minute. But unlike other species, humanity did not break. For every ship destroyed, another surged forward. For every pilot lost, another shouted into the comms, "For Earth!" Fear began to spread among the Coalition crews. They had never seen enemies fight like this, so reckless, so determined, so unwilling to yield. Heroes in the void, Lieutenant Rhea Patel's fighter danced between burning wrecks. Her squadron had been cut down to half its size, but she refused to retreat. "Squadron 7 on me," she shouted. She led her fighters in a daring dive straight through the plasma fire of a battlecruiser. Shields sparked around the alien vessel as her team targeted its engines. Missiles struck, tearing through the weakened shield. The massive ship staggered, losing power, and began to drift. Another squadron swooped in to finish the job, their cannons punching through the hull. The battlecruiser erupted, breaking apart in silence. Rhea let out a breath, her hands shaking. "That's 3 down. Keep pushing." Elsewhere, Captain O'Rourke's ironclad faced 2 coalition destroyers. His ship was battered, armor burning, but he refused to retreat. "Bring us closer," he ordered. "But sir, we'll be in range of—" "I said closer." The ironclad pushed forward, shields flickering under alien fire. At point-blank range, O'Rourke unleashed his ship's broadside. Cannons thundered, tearing through the enemy shields with sheer brute force. One destroyer split apart, its engines exploding. The other limped away, smoking. O'Rourke grinned through blood on his forehead. "Tell them humanity doesn't run." The turning tide. The battle dragged on. Dozens of ships from both sides were reduced to wreckage, drifting in silence. The asteroid belt became a graveyard of fire and steel, but slowly the tide began to turn. The coalition's perfect formations were shattered. Their ships struggled to regroup, but human attacks came from too many angles. Every time they adapted, humans shifted tactics again. Admiral Hale saw the opportunity. "All ships concentrate on the flagship. Cut off the Serpent's head." The Armada focused fire on the Korath. Missiles, cannon fire, and fighter strikes slammed into its shields. For the first time, the Vanguard commander felt fear. "Retreat," the Rune shouted. "Signal the fleet to regroup." But it was too late. A final volley from the Vanguard's railgun smashed through the Korath's shield. The massive ship cracked, then exploded, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The Vanguard was broken. Silence after the storm. The battle ended with wrecks floating in every direction. Fires burned in the dark, and bodies drifted among twisted metal. Humanity had paid a price. Dozens of ships lost, thousands of lives gone. But the coalition had suffered worse. Half their Vanguard fleet was destroyed, and the rest fled in panic. On the Vanguard, Admiral Hale looked at the reports. His heart ached for the losses, but his voice was steady. "Signal Earth, the Vanguard is defeated. Humanity stands." Across the Armada, exhausted crews cheered. For the first time, humans had stood against the galaxy's greatest power and won. The first lesson back on the Coalition's main fleet, news of the defeat spread like wildfire. Officers whispered in disbelief. Ships that had never lost a battle had been destroyed by a species they thought primitive. High Marshal Tharoon's reputation lay in ruins. His final message before the flagship exploded echoed in the minds of his soldiers. They fight like no other. The lesson was clear. Humanity was not like the others. They did not bow. They did not break. They turned chaos into strength and fear into fire. The galaxy had underestimated them, and now it would pay the price. The first clash had shattered the Coalition Vanguard, but High Marshal Tharoon was only the beginning. Across the galaxy, the Coalition's command centers buzzed with fury. Their forces were far larger than the handful of ships humanity had faced in the asteroid belt. They had the numbers, the firepower, and centuries of experience. They assumed victory was inevitable. Humanity had won a skirmish, they thought, but not a war. Preparing the counter-strike back on Earth and across human colonies, Admiral Jonas Hale and Chancellor Elena Merrick received intelligence reports of incoming fleets. Hundreds of alien warships were moving toward the solar system. The Coalition had mobilized its full might. Hale studied the projections. "They think they can overwhelm us. They don't know we've prepared for this. They see numbers, but we see opportunity." Elena nodded. "It is time to take the fight to them. Waiting is no longer an option. Humanity must show the galaxy its strength." Orders went out. Every human ship in the Armada was to converge on the outer edges of the system. Stealth vessels were sent ahead to gather intelligence. Fighters and bombers were loaded with specialized munitions. Every ship, every pilot, and every crew member knew their role in the coming storm. Crossing into the darkness, the Armada moved in perfect coordination. Their engines glowed faintly in the void as they exited hiding positions beyond Pluto, across the Kuiper Belt, and from deep space colonies. To the Coalition scouts, it looked like a scattered, disorganized approach. But every human maneuver was deliberate, every course calculated to strike precisely. Admiral Hale stood on the bridge of the Vanguard. "All captains maintain formation Delta 7. Watch for ambushes, but do not hesitate. Today, we fight for more than survival. Today, we fight for humanity itself. Crews across the fleet cheered silently. For some, this was the first time they would face the full might of the coalition. Fear lingered, but determination burned brighter. The first assault. The human fleet reached the edge of the coalition's staging area. Sensors detected hundreds of enemy ships stretching across the darkness like a wall. The aliens had gathered their cruisers, carriers, and battleships, preparing to crush humanity with sheer force. The Rune's second-in-command, Admiral Vresk, observed the approaching human fleet. "They are bold," he said, antennae twitching. "But they cannot match us. They are reckless, and that will be their undoing." The coalition opened fire first. Massive beams of plasma lanced through the void, tearing small asteroids apart and lighting up the darkness. Coalition destroyers focused on stealth frigates, hoping to pick off human ships one by one. But humans had anticipated this. Coordinated Strikes Lieutenant Rhea Patel led her fighter squadron into the enemy formation. Using asteroid cover and advanced stealth maneuvers, they struck key targets: enemy sensor arrays, shield generators, and missile launchers. Each attack was coordinated with artillery from the Armada's larger ships. On the Ironclad, Captain O'Rourke directed fire at two massive cruisers. "Target the engines. Disable their movement, then take them down." Explosions erupted as human volleys hit their targets. Coalition ships that had expected to face a weaker enemy now struggled to defend themselves. Shields flickered, engines faltered, and chaos spread through their ranks. Across the battlefield, human pilots executed maneuvers no computer could predict. Fighters dove and weaved between plasma beams. Bombers dropped munitions in precise patterns, and frigates darted in and out of the enemy's firing range. The coalition's sense of superiority faltered. Their best ships were falling, and the humans had not yet even reached their center of power. Breaking the lines, Admiral Hale made his move. "All ships converge on the flagship cluster. Today, we cut the head from the serpent." The Armada surged forward in a wave of firepower. Massive dreadnoughts absorbed hits while dishing out damage in return. Human carriers released swarms of fighters that tore into enemy flanks. Frigates struck critical weak points, then vanished into the void before the enemy could respond. The coalition fleet, used to orderly, predictable battles, struggled to adjust. Their formations broke under the relentless human assault. Ships collided in confusion. Weapons fired at empty space, and panic spread among officers who had never known failure. The Rune's flagship, a massive warship bristling with weapons, became the target. Missiles, cannons, and fighter strikes focused on it from every angle. Shield generators faltered. Hull plates cracked. Explosions lit up the darkness. "Evade! Evade!" Tharoon screamed, but it was too late. The Vanguard fired a massive railgun shot, cutting through the flagship's shields and hull. A chain reaction of explosions tore the ship apart. The flagship, the symbol of the coalition's might, was no more. Shockwaves across the fleet. The destruction of the flagship sent shockwaves through the coalition forces. Morale collapsed. Ships broke formation, retreating in disorder. Smaller human vessels capitalized on this, picking off stragglers with precision fire. Even the coalition soldiers began to whisper in disbelief. They fight like nothing we have ever seen," said one. "They are not just soldiers," another replied. "They are predators, hunters with fire in their veins." The Armada pressed forward relentlessly. No human ship fell back unless it was necessary to regroup. Every crew member understood the importance of every strike. This was not conquest. It was survival, combined with the desire to prove humanity's worth to the galaxy. Heroes emerge. In the middle of the chaos, Lieutenant Patel's squadron encountered a massive carrier blocking their path. She led a daring attack, diving through narrow gaps in enemy fire, dodging missiles, and targeting the engines with precise strikes. The carrier's shields faltered, and a squad of human bombers finished the job. "Squadron 7, report," she shouted. "Carrier down. Flank clear," came the reply. Captain O'Rourke maneuvered the Ironclad into a strategic position, using its firepower to support the advancing frigates. His voice was steady. "Remember, every strike counts. Humanity does not retreat." Across the Armada, similar feats were happening. Every officer, every pilot, every gunner was executing maneuvers that showcased human adaptability, creativity, and courage. The turning point. The coalition attempted to regroup. Tharoon and surviving officers tried to form a defensive line, hoping to stop the humans' advance. But it was too late. Humanity had broken the first wave, and now the full armada moved in with coordinated precision. Missiles, plasma beams, and railguns struck in perfect timing. Fighters swarmed from all sides. Human ships moved unpredictably, making it impossible for the aliens to anticipate their actions. By the time the battle ended, the coalition had lost half its fleet. The remaining ships fled, retreating to regroup far from the solar system. For humanity, the cost was high but acceptable. Hundreds of ships were damaged or destroyed. Thousands of brave humans had died, but the victory was undeniable. They had not only defended their home, they had destroyed the myth of the coalition's invincibility. Aftermath back on Earth and the human colonies, the news arrived like thunder. People cheered, cried, and embraced. Humanity had faced the galaxy's greatest power and emerged victorious. They had proven that they were not weak, not divided, not prey. Admiral Hale addressed the Armada. "This is only the beginning. The galaxy has seen our strength, but the fight is not over. We will continue to show that humans are more than they ever imagined, more than the galaxy ever imagined." Across the fleets, crew members nodded. They were tired, injured, and mourning their fallen, but their spirits were unbroken. Humanity had won a great battle, and the galaxy was beginning to take notice. The remnants of the coalition fleet fled into the darkness of deep space. Their vanguard had been destroyed, their flagship shattered, and morale crushed. Rumors of what humans had done spread like wildfire among their species. Every soldier, every officer whispered the same words: "They fight like no other." They are not to be underestimated. Back in the solar system, humanity did not celebrate lightly. The cost of war was visible in the drifting wreckage, in the injured, and in the lives lost. But there was pride as well, and a new understanding. Earth and its colonies were no longer weak, no longer hidden from the galaxy's gaze. Humanity had risen. Assessing the victory on the bridge of the Vanguard, Admiral Jonas Hale studied the tactical maps. Red symbols marked destroyed coalition ships. Green symbols marked the surviving human vessels. His face was calm, but inside a storm of relief and determination raged. "We've shown them what humans can do," he said to his officers. "But they will return. We must be ready for anything." Chancellor Elena Marique joined him via comms. "The people are watching, Admiral. Humanity has proven it is united, capable, and strong. The galaxy will not ignore us again." Hale nodded. "And humanity will not ignore the galaxy either. This is our chance to shape the future, consolidating power." The first priority was securing the solar system and ensuring humanity's survival. Damaged ships returned to repair facilities on Mars, Earth, and the outer colonies. Crews mourned their lost comrades but shared stories of bravery, improvisation, and skill. Every story became part of the growing legend of humanity's Armada. Earth's leaders moved quickly to stabilize governance across colonies. Trade routes were secured, defenses strengthened, and communication networks expanded. Humanity was no longer fragmented. The war had forced unity, and that unity had created power unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Hale addressed the crews. "You have done more than survive. You have shown the galaxy what humans are capable of. Never forget it. Humanity will not bow again." Across the fleet, the human crews cheered quietly, exhaustion and pride mixing in every voice. The coalition responds deep in the outer reaches of the galaxy. Surviving coalition leaders convened. High Marshal Tharoon had been defeated and others hesitated to take command. The Vanguard's destruction was more than a tactical loss. It was a blow to their pride, to their sense of superiority. "They are dangerous," one officer said. "We cannot fight them like other species. They think, they adapt, and worst of all, they never give up." "They are humans," another said quietly. "I have heard stories of their tenacity, but I did not believe them until now." The coalition realized that war against humanity would be different. They could not simply crush or intimidate. Humans fought in ways no algorithm could predict. With courage no fear could diminish. They were, in every sense, extraordinary. Humanity's first diplomacy. But humanity was not only warriors. They were clever too. Using the advantage of victory, Chancellor Marique opened channels to the coalition. Her message was clear. Humanity will no longer negotiate from weakness. We fight if necessary. We survive if challenged. And we expect respect. The message shocked the galaxy. It was not a plea, not a surrender, not even a threat. It was a statement of fact. Humanity was no longer hiding. Humanity was no longer submissive. Humanity had arrived. The Rune's surviving officers debated, unsure how to respond. They realized that Earth and its colonies had become a power to respect or risk destruction. Building the new order with the coalition temporarily deterred, humanity began to assert itself in the galaxy. Trade agreements were rewritten, colonization efforts coordinated, and defensive alliances formed. Species that had once looked down on humans now sought communication. The story of the Armada, its bravery and its victories spread faster than any propaganda. On Earth, children learned about the Armada not just as history, but as inspiration. Humans do not wait for miracles, teachers said. Humans create them. Families watched live feeds of the returning ships, witnessing humanity's strength and resolve firsthand. Admiral Hale and Chancellor Merrick convened with leaders from every colony. "This is our chance to lead," Merrick said. "We have survived and we have proven ourselves. The galaxy will remember that humanity does not beg. Humanity does not yield. Humanity rises." A new galactic reputation, the galaxy began to whisper about Earth. Traders, explorers, and even former enemies repeated the same phrase: never underestimate humans. Diplomatic envoys approached cautiously. Military forces watched warily. Even older, more powerful species recognized that humans were not only survivors, they were innovators, strategists, and fighters who would never be contained, and humans did not seek revenge. They sought order, respect, and opportunity. They established rules for interactions that were fair but firm. Their reputation grew not just for strength but for intelligence and creativity. Legacy of the Armada Admiral Hale walked the decks of the Vanguard, now repaired and stronger than ever. He looked at the young pilots and engineers who had joined the fleet during the war. "You have done the impossible," he said. "You have shown the galaxy that humanity is not a species to underestimate. Remember this day and remember the reason we fight: survival, unity, and the courage to rise when the odds are against us." Lieutenant Patel, standing among her squadron, smiled quietly. She thought of her family back on Earth, of the losses and victories of every daring maneuver she had taken. Humanity had faced fire and chaos and emerged stronger. The Armada was no longer just a fleet. It was a symbol, a beacon, and a warning. Humanity would defend its home, its people, and its honor, no matter the cost. A lesson for the galaxy far beyond the solar system. Surviving coalition leaders finally understood the truth. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not submissive. Humanity was relentless. "They are exceptional," one whispered. "They are humans," another replied. "And we will not forget this." For the first time, the galaxy saw a species that refused to bow, refused to kneel, and refused to negotiate from fear. A species that could adapt, fight, and survive in ways no one expected. Humanity had redefined its place in the stars. Closing, humanity's triumph. The war had ended, for now. The coalition would recover, but they would never again underestimate humans. Humanity had taken its place in the galaxy not by begging or pleading, but by showing courage, intelligence, and unity in the face of impossible odds. The Armada returned to Earth and its colonies, carrying heroes, stories, and the promise of a new era. The galaxy had been reminded that patience, planning, and willpower could turn the weak into the strongest. From this day forward, every species whispered the same truth. Never mistake humanity's patience for weakness. They may seem small, they may seem young, but when pushed, they rise. And when they rise, the galaxy remembers. Humanity had not just survived, they had conquered fear, shattered expectations, and proven that they were a species unlike any other.